Now let's talk a little bit about ordering numbers when they're kind of given to you in some different formats, okay? And for that, I'm actually going to draw myself a slightly smaller or just a different number line, okay? I'm still going to go all the way across, so I guess it's not really smaller, okay? And I'm still going to put 0 in the middle, okay? And for this one, I'm going to come to each end, okay? And I'm going to have this be -1 and this be 1, okay? So this is kind of like taking this part of this number line and blowing it up, okay? So the numbers I kind of want to look at, these are kind of examples, and we're going to put these on the number line. We're going to look at -5/8, -1/2, 0, -1/10, 25 hundredths, -1/4, and we're also going to look at -2 hundredths. Okay, so we're just going to find each of these on the number line. Okay, and the one I'm going to start with is actually right here, this -1/2. Okay, I think we've talked about benchmark numbers, and once I'm dealing with numbers that are smaller than 0 or have an absolute value that's smaller than 0, I feel like half is my friend, okay? Because I know right where it is, it's halfway in between, okay? So +1/2 would be halfway between 0 and 1, so -1/2 would be halfway between 0 and -1, okay? So I've taken care of that one. 0, well, there's my friend right there, okay? And now I'm going to come over and I'm going to grab this 1/4, -1/4, okay? And if I have my number line divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 even parts, -1/4 would be between 0 and 1/2, okay? Because the way it goes, if it was over here, right, it would be, I'm actually going to mark them, like we have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, okay? But we know that 2/4 is the same as 1/2, so we do 1/4, 1/2, 3/4. So we kind of do the backwards over here. We have -1/4, -1/2, and then this would be -3/4, okay? And now I'm going to come over here to this one, 0.25 or 25 hundredths. That's one of my benchmark numbers, and that one is equivalent to 1/4, right? A quarter of a dollar, 25 cents. So there is my 0.25, my 25 hundredths. Okay, so now I've got 3 left. Okay, I'm going to come over here to -1/10. Okay, so again, I'm going to think about this 1/2, and I'm going to think about this -1/4. Okay, -1/10 is the same as, -1/10. Okay, and I know that 1/4, okay, is 0.25, right? So -1/4 would be the same as -25 hundredths. Okay, I'm gonna let that soak in for a minute. -25 hundredths is the same as -1/4 because 25 hundredths is the same as 1/4. Okay, so how many hundredths do I have right here? Well, if I added a 0, I'm not changing the value, right? And that just became 10 100ths. Okay, so what's bigger? Or what has the greater absolute value, 10 100ths or 25 100ths? Okay, 25 100ths. So 25 100ths is going to be further away from 0 than 10 100ths. Okay, and about halfway in between would be 12, right? So I'm going to put it a little bit closer to 0, and right there is -1/10. Okay. Now over here, 2 hundredths. Okay, so that's negative 2 hundredths. Okay, well, that's tiny, right? Like this over here, that was 10 hundredths. This is 2 hundredths. So it's going to be even closer to 0. So that right there is negative 2 hundredths. Okay. Now I've got 5/8 to deal with. And I say that one for last because, well, quite frankly, I'm not a fan. Okay. I don't really know what 5/8 is equivalent to, so I'm going to have to just think through a couple of things. I know that 4/8 is equivalent to 1/2, right? And the absolute value of 5/8 is greater than 4/8, right? You know, 8, you know, got 8 pieces of pizza, 5 of those pieces would be bigger than 4 of those pieces. So I know that negative 5/8 is going to be further away from 0 than 4/8, which would be 1/2, because this negative 4/8 would be right here. Okay, so now I've just got to decide how much further. Okay, so I know it's going to be over here somewhere. So if this is one of those questions where they had, like, you know, they'd labeled a letter over here, you know, like if I had over here, like, you know, this is point A, what is that? You know, like if they had it like that, and there's only one point in this general area, I would know, well, that's negative 5/8. Okay, so I know it's bigger than 4/8, or has a greater absolute value. It's actually a smaller number. So the next thing I'm going to think about, well, right here, what would be right there? Negative 1/4, negative 1/2, negative 3/4, right? Negative 3/4. Okay. Well, 3/4, well, wait a minute, you know, 8 and 4, those are multiples, right? So what would 3/4 be? Okay. Well, if I did 4 times 2, I'd get 8. So 3 times 2 would be 6. So this right here is negative 6/8. See how I figured out? Which means, golly gee whiz, negative 5/8 is right here in the middle. Right? 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. So that right there is negative 5/8. Okay? And now I have found all of my numbers on my number line. And I've ordered, and I could order these from least to greatest. Okay, negative 5/8, then negative 1/2, then let's see what's next. Negative 1/10, then negative 2 hundredths, then 0, then 25 hundredths, or 1/4. Okay. So I recommend really learning this trick right here. How you say a decimal is how you write it as a fraction. 25 hundredths, 25 hundredths. 1/10, 1/10, 10 hundredths, 10 hundredths, 2 hundredths, 2 hundredths. Okay, so there we go.